It's time to spill
the tea.
Hello!
You there, and welcome to A Spoonful of Theatre.
And this is another one of our Spill the Tea Theatre Review episodes. I'm TJ, theatre practitioner and director.
And I'm Sam, a teacher of language, literature and self-proclaimed show business lovey. And yes, we have just seen a theatre production. Where are we, TJ?
We are right outside the SOTA Drama Theatre, and we just watched Sing Theatre's A French Kiss in Singapore.
Ooh la la!
Yes, now of course I did used to work for Sing Theatre, full disclosure. I have not been involved in this production at all, but this is a very unbiased review from myself. So, Sam, what are your first thoughts of A French Kiss in Singapore by Sing Theatre?
Well, this is a different kind of show, isn't it? Because it's not a musical.
No.
It's not a play.
No.
What is it, TJ?
It is a musical review.
And
now,
what's one of them?
What's one of them? Now, a musical review is basically a show where we put songs of either a certain genre, a certain type, or maybe from a certain artist, all into a show, and it's very much just song after song after song, maybe loosely linked with either a vague storyline, or it could be telling you a bit more about that genre or song. In this particular instance, we're talking very much French songs, and I'm going to throw over the French to you because I am not a Francophile, unlike you. But we're talking about four very famous songwriters from France, and the songs are kind of performed in English mostly, but also we get a little bit of French in there as well. So it really is one for everyone. You don't have to know French, you don't have to study French to enjoy the show, and it kind of educates you a little bit on some French culture, some French songs, and you do get a bit surprised actually along the way about songs that in English you know that you didn't realise were written by a French artist. That's one of my takeaways.
Yes, you're absolutely right, yeah. It includes the songs of Charles Aznavour, Charles Trenet, Serge Gainsbourg and Jacques Brel. And you're absolutely right, TJ, there are songs in there that you will have heard of by very famous covers, boy bands, for example.
Beyond the Sea is one of my favourites.
Yes, absolutely.
Did I say that right?
La Mer, yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
very
La
good.
Mer,
Ooh, look at
Beyond
me.
the Sea,
Yes.
which was made famous in English by Bobby Darin. So it very much pays homage to those artists, to those songs, and how they have permeated throughout the world and become popularised around the world.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and there's a particular reason why I enjoyed this. Not only because I am a Francophile, I speak French, I do love French culture, but also it took me right back to my days on the cruise ships. When I was on the cruise ships, I was a part of, I narrated, I hosted musical review shows. So this brought me right back to my days on the cruise ships when I took part in these kinds of things. So it was nostalgic for me. It was very funny. It was very, very funny. It was heartwarming. I've got a lot of emotions. But what did you think, TJ?
For you, you're a Francophile. I'm a musical theatre-phile. And I always love a story. So for me, musical reviews are never my favourite genre on the whole. And I think it is really important for people to know that it is not a musical and it is a musical theatre review, because I went in knowing that and I went in enjoying myself because I knew that. If I went in thinking it was a musical and I was expecting the story and the character development that you expect in a musical, I might have been a little bit more disappointed. But I knew what I was going into, and I would say I had a nice night in the theatre overall, and I definitely thoroughly entertained by the five amazing performers on the stage, as well as the wonderful choreography as well. But we'll get into some of those things very shortly.
Well, let's go straight into it then. So you mentioned the performance then. So let's talk about those five wonderful performers that were on the stage tonight. What did you think, TJ?
I think they are five very charismatic actors, which is definitely why they were chosen. I love all five of them for very different reasons. They are five entertainers, and I think in a musical review, that's exactly what you need. You need entertainment, because you're not relying on a story, you're relying on charisma. And all five of them definitely bring something very different as well. There's a nice balance between them all. You get Reno's fabulous kind of cheeky chappy kind of very energetic, kind of almost Energizer Bunny energy, especially with his fantastic tap dancing. Oh my goodness, that was definitely a highlight for me. And then you get kind of suaveness of Amin coming in with Dwayne's kind of cheeky vibe. And then all overshadowed by Andrew Marco's absolute goofballness, but in such an amazing way. Like, Marco is just such an entertainer, and I can't take my eyes off him. And obviously it's quite nice to see Hosan pop in for a couple of times throughout as well. Classic entertainer there. What did you think?
For me, do you know what popped into my mind? The Rat Pack. So, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., because they, as performers, all brought something different to the shows that they did. And these 5 gentlemen did exactly the same. I completely agree with your summary of what each performer brought to the show tonight. I will give a very big and very special shout out to Reno. For me, Reno was the standout performer tonight. He was electrifying in his performance. My eyes were always drawn to him. He just brought it to the stage. And of course, Marco as well, with how seamlessly funny he is. He just needs to walk on, and already you're chuckling.
Yes.
No, they were really, they all brought something a little bit different, and that's why I think it worked so well. But I agree with you, they had to have that charisma in order for this show to be successful.
Yeah. I think moving on from that, a nice point is going into the general. Obviously, we said there's no story, but the makeup of the show, the layout of the show. For me, it's not my favorite musical review. It doesn't quite land in teaching you about the composers enough. And it also doesn't really ever land on a place that's actually telling you something that I walk away going, I've learned something tonight. It kind of touches on a lot of things, but it doesn't ever delve into those too much. And I felt I was introduced to a lot of new songs, but I'm just not as much of a fan of those songs personally in 2025. But I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. It's just not where I personally like to listen to songs as much, but I still enjoyed myself.
You've touched on something that I think is an issue with all musical reviews, not just this one. I'm thinking of Spoonful of Sherman suffers with the same thing as well, which is the performers are telling the story, but the audience have to zone in on that. They've got nothing to look at, or nothing to feel, or anything like that. All I've got is you, the performer, completely changing the dynamics of the show to give me a biography.
Yeah.
And that is one of the buggy things about musical reviews. And I think if anybody wants to do a musical review, put up a screen, put up some photos about the people that they're talking about, or some movie clips or things like that. Just something that the audience are drawn to, that connects the context of what the performer is saying.
So let's go on to a few more of the creative aspects. So the music, a fabulous Elaine Chan. The band definitely was lovely and tight overall. I think we're still early on in the run, and I think some of the harmonies definitely could do with a little tightening up, but I don't think they ever ruined it. I think one of the big problems is you have 5 very unique voices, so putting my kind of singing coach hat on there, blending 5 very unique performers' voices is quite a challenge, and especially in a live setting when they're still getting used to audience reactions. So I'm going to give that a bit of benefit of the doubt during opening, and I'm sure that will settle in. There was no bad singing tonight. It's just some little tweaks of some of the harmonies here and there that I think should settle.
I agree with you, but I also want to give kudos to all the gentlemen for singing in a language that they are not familiar with. Even I, as somebody who has learned French, gets very anxious singing in French. So a big kudos to the gentlemen. The pronunciation was flawless.
Then going into the staging and the lighting, so staging done by Katrina, and the lighting there done by Ruben. I really enjoyed the lighting throughout. Actually, I thought the lighting was very fun. I thought it went with the songs. Some of the staging choices for me, I particularly do not like seeing stage crew on the stage. So there was one moment early on where the steps came in halfway through a song, and that really honestly got my goat, because there was 4 stage crew behind these wonderful singers singing with some steps randomly coming in. It reminded me a bit of a Carry On sketch where they'd forgotten to put a piece of set there and they needed it at that point. There was no reason for the set to come there at that point. So I actually didn't mind the staging in terms of the platform that they'd used. I just think it could have been integrated a little bit better and a bit smoother, maybe using some of the cast, maybe using some of the transitions. I think overall transitions were lacking for me from a director perspective throughout the whole night. The other thing I was a bit unsure about was the painting. Felt like that came in, felt like it had no context to the show, and it was never explained. To be honest, I'm not sure if it did have any context. It was just a colourful painting. So I think those elements for me could have done with a bit of tweaking as well.
I agree with you. That painting could have been the screen where you put up the pictures of Charles Aznavour. The only note I have about it is that stage is very big, and my point there is that there's a whole lot of unused space that kind of makes the performers look smaller.
Yeah. But I think what was really nice is the costumes as well. So I think the costumes are absolutely beautiful. And Max is just a fabulous designer. There was a few very artistic choices with some of them, but I think that's very French. I think if you're going to see a French show, couture and that sort of vibe really needs to be shining through, and I think Max really delivered on that and brought a lot of colour to the performance and added some comedy. Like, for example, in the beach towel scene, what song was that where they were doing the sexy men dancing with the beach towels? That was really fun, and that was a particular highlight, a hilarious one. The boys really delivered the comedy in that song.
Yes, I think the costumes complemented the personalities of the performers wearing them.
Yes.
So like you mentioned the haute couture, Amin and Reno wore the much more fashionable kind of costumes, and then Dwayne and Marco wore the more traditional, the more conservative,
but really, with a bit of glitz at the end.
Yes. Yeah. So the costumes were good choices for the personalities of the performers. Now, though, TJ, we have to talk about the choreography.
Oh, we cannot not talk about the choreography. Lisa Keegan, by far my favourite choreographer. Just a wonderful human being. I had the pleasure of working with her on Cabaret when we did Cabaret a few years ago. But she is so creative.
Yes.
And what you need in a musical review is to tell a story through the song, even though there's no story necessarily there. And you could tell the numbers where Lisa's got her hands on it, because those were the numbers where I sat up and I went, oh, I'm engaged, I'm excited.
Yes.
And not just because they were dancing, because suddenly they were telling a story.
Yes.
And I think I could probably point you out the numbers where the choreographer kind of really added that. And I think that for me was where the show shone in those moments.
For me, the choreography was outstanding. And to Lisa and to Reno, I want to say a very big thank you to you, because you have given me a gift. And that is, after 10 years of living in Singapore, I have finally seen a tap performance on the stage. Thank you so much, and it was absolutely amazing. Reno and Amin were so tight. It was a real highlight of the show. It was marvelous. Yes.
Reno learnt tap from YouTube.
No!
Yes!
Reno, send me the videos immediately.
I was going to say, you've been wanting to learn tap for so long. There you go. No excuse.
And I remember Cabaret. And I remember saying to the dancers there after the show, what really was a highlight of that show was the choreography and how tight it was. Yeah. It's the same here. Lisa, you've done a marvellous job, and so have you, boys. Well done. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, when TJ and I see a show, we always give it a spoonful rating. But of course, we never let each other know what rating we are going to give until the moment has come. We give it a rating out of 5 spoonfuls. So, are you ready, TJ?
I'm ready.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, fabulous. Okay, well done. Why is it 3 for you, TJ?
I think for me the choreography and the humour really shone through, and I genuinely enjoyed those moments, and I think I just had a lovely time in the theatre because of that. Was it my favourite show that I'm going to remember forever? Absolutely not, but I think a very worthwhile visit to the theatre, and I think, like you said, earlier reminded me of those cruise ship performances that you can really enjoy, and you go and you have a great time. So I'd suggest people go make a night of it, make it a date night, go for dinner before, go see this afterwards. Maybe you'll get a French kiss afterwards too. Ooh la la.
Yes, for me, thoroughly entertaining, but the boys really brought it, and they brought their personalities that made me laugh, that made me weep, that made me feel marvellous, and just the choreography, the costume were really outstanding for this show, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, this is playing until the 27th of April, and tickets are available on Sistic. Right, my tea's gone cold, love. Shall we leave it there?
Absolutely.
So that's cheerio from us. We'll be back soon.
And a ta-ra from me.
And to the cast and crew of A French Kiss in Singapore by Sing Theatre.
And to anybody else performing in Singapore Theatre over the next month,
Break a leg.